You want to grow in social media? When you post, why don't you think what's in it for the other person instead of what's in it for you? The main reason 99% of businesses and people can't grow on social is they're selfish. They want the likes. They want the followers. They want to sell something. Well, guess what? Your audience may not like that. And so I think if the world can get more into bringing value, all the things they want, the questions they'd like to be asked, the promotion they would like to do, all that works itself out. And I think that's a perspective change a lot of people need.
Attention is the #1 asset.
Gary Vaynerchuk, also known as GaryVee, thanks so much for joining us in our Abu Dhabi studio.
Thanks for having me.
So this is our special edition. We're looking at a series of episodes looking at the highs, lows, and the road ahead for social media. You know, it's propelled a tremendous amount of wealth. You talk about this in your new book, Day Trading Attention. You give some great advice, but you also talk about something in particular called the TikTokification of social media. Can you extrapolate on that?
Yeah, social media for the last 15 years has been more like email and email marketing, meaning get as many people to sign up for your email, send it out, and a percentage of them opens it and engages it. So I grew up in email marketing for Wine Library. And so when social came and I built GaryVee, I understood it. I'm like, let me get as many followers as I can on the merit of my content. And then a percentage of those people will see my content every time. About 3-4 years ago, what you saw was TikTok gaining real steam. And what you understood was it was interest graph. The algorithm took the content. So for everybody who's listening, the fact that I've spent 15 years doing good work and amassed this huge following, quote unquote, gives me almost that's a little bit extreme, but I don't have as big of advantage of getting my content out today as I did 4 years ago, because now if you make a good piece of content and you've never posted before, it could get 500,000 views, and I could put out a piece of content that only gets 40,000 views, and so the algorithms are taking over the feed based on people's interests more so than based on who they follow. So I would argue that we are in social media is no longer about the human part, the social graph. It's now around the interest graph, which is actually much more similar to how people consume information.
So you've already written at least 5 New York Times bestsellers. One would think that you have sort of saturated the market and there's no new information to give. You've already given some new hints at that information. What more is there in this book that your seasoned GaryVee consumer is going to learn about?
That's a really fun question, because I would argue that my publisher always makes fun of me for making books that are not timeless. They're always like, Gary, write a timeless book, something that we could sell for the next 50 years. I'm like, but I don't want to, and so what I mean by that is, to answer your question, I've written this book before. It was written 10 years ago. It was called Jab, 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 Right Hook. It was a monster hit. I'm proud of it. And the reason I wrote this book is so many people have emailed me in the last 12 months, 24 months saying, Gary, I just read Jab, 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 Right Hook. Thank you. It's epic. And I'm in my mind saying, what are you talking about? Everything I wrote, obviously there's 30% of that book that is still incredibly relevant, but so much of it was timely. What will the most seasoned GaryVee fan find in this is the details of ironically, a book allows me to go much more detailed than a piece of social media content. So this is very academic. It's more textbook of a lot of things that I talk about in social, but this is the current state of the 7 platforms that matter, what's actually happening. And then I really gave people a framework of how to think about it. Consumer segmentations, cohorts, reading all the comments, PCS, these are all post-creative strategy. I go very detailed in it.
What are the 7 platforms that matter? Because you have a lot of upstarts, you have a lot of, established platforms.
Yep. Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
Mm. So your book inevitably, I think it's safe to say, will rise up the charts. There's already a book that's sort of entrenched at the top of the charts right now. Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, his thesis basically being, there's this great rewiring of childhood causing an epidemic, he argues, of mental illness, mental problems. He's talking about tech addiction, cell phone addiction. Do you agree with that thesis at all? I know it's kind of a gross oversimplification of his book, but it is out there and it's a really hot topic.
Yeah, I think I haven't read the book and I think anything not in moderation is a problem. Do I think alcohol should have been banned all over the world as it has through the history of time? I think the world has proven maybe, maybe not, but probably not. Meaning anything, sugar. Sugar is a problem if you consume too much of it. So, without knowing what the details of the book are, if he's saying being on your cell phone 15 hours a day constantly has some ramifications, of course. My argument's a little bit different, which is I think we have a parenting pandemic.
Well, that's interesting. I mean,
because let me just jump in to say it very simple. When people stop me at the airport because they know I talk about social media, they're like, Gary, this is a real problem. My 14-year-old is on Snapchat all day. It's a real problem. The easiest answer of any question I have is that. I look them in the face and say, then be a parent. Take it away. Delete the app. Moderate your child. Like, I think that there are probably enormous amounts of points in that book that I agree with. What I'm fascinated by is that we are in a generation of parenting that is not willing to have children face consequences and ramifications for their actions. And I think that's our issue.
Going with that, doesn't every generation say that about the generation that follows it, and vice versa?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes, I think social media is amateur hour compared to what kids in 25 years are going to be doing.
And in terms of accountability, though, we shouldn't necessarily absolve big tech either, though, in that same breath. Or maybe you disagree, I don't know.
No, I fully agree. My argument is we are always talking about big tech. We're talking about regulation all the time. Why aren't we talking about parents that don't have any parenting skills? I think our issue is parenting. I don't think that Google or Facebook should get a free pass. I think parenting's getting a free pass.
Point well taken. The TikTok is still very hot.
Yes.
Around the world right
Yes.
now. It shows no sign of slowing down, except, of course, for the regulators.
Yes.
What are you telling content creators right now? And frankly, not just content creators, those who enjoy TikTok, as it faces the potential ban. It's a long road to being banned in the US, but how do people hedge their bets?
I think anybody who relies on TikTok for their career that isn't building out presence on YouTube Shorts, on Snap Spotlight, on Facebook, Instagram, that's just not smart. This goes back to my love affair with accountability. What am I telling them? That they should be diversifying. But they should be diversifying even if there was no ban in front. Tila Tequila dominated MySpace. If she dominated YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, which was the obvious thing to do at the time, she would have been more relevant and had more opportunity for a longer period of time. Forget about bans. 4 years ago, I was yelling at the top of my lungs on 500 pieces of content per month, get on TikTok, get on TikTok, get on TikTok. Tons of Instagram-only content creators did not do that, and they lost their market share. So to me, when Seinfeld's the #1 show on television, you run commercials on it. And when it no longer is, you run commercials somewhere else. That's basically what I'm telling everyone here. Build attention everywhere so that you're not vulnerable.
What do you make of X right now? It's been a tumultuous few years.
Yep.
Elon Musk, I think it's safe to say, his decisions have created a sort of mercurial platform. What do you make of it? It's not the same Twitter it used to be, I think. Or X, sorry.
Yeah, it's funny, it's the same Twitter X it's been for a while. It is not, from my point of view, as someone who studies it pretty hard, it's not so remarkably different than, the only difference is he's actually doing things with it. If you're talking about it's contentious, every town hall is always contentious. It's been the internet's town hall. It was, I was living in Twitter in 2008. Let me make this very clear for everyone. It was contentious in there. Obama, McCain, contentious. It's contentious when you allow everyone to talk to each other and everyone in the world sees the world differently. The only difference I see really, genuinely, is that I'm more curious than ever what might happen of it. Meaning, will they bring back Vine? Will it be a streaming service? There's been a lot more feature work. Twitter stayed the same for a long time. Listen, Elon is far from not controversial. But, I think that people, I think sometimes get clouded by their feelings to Elon, pro and con, by the way. I think the platform, people debating and not being nice to each other happened long before Elon bought it.
For social media platforms across the board right now, there seems to be a little bit of saturation. Would you start a new social platform right now? Because a couple have bitten the dust. There was Post News, which was a media darling for a while, and they were going to, be the place, Twitter alternative. That went kaput. It seems a little bit saturated, but
look, I think what we're in, I think I'm very comfortable in saying this. Every 4 to 7 years, something's got a real shot. That's been the history. I'm using history as a predictor. Would I go for it? Sure, because if you hit it, it's as lucrative as it gets. But are you saying that it's that 99.9% of social media networks that attempt to become a network are going to fail? I agree.
What's the biggest misconception people have about artificial intelligence? That's not even the thrust of this podcast series, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you that, because it is everywhere. It's on the tip of every tongue.
That it's more similar to the internet itself than, let's say, some other feature. It is such a big technology. It's an inevitable outcome in our society. You don't put the genie back in the bottle with technology. And I think the biggest misconception is it's going to kill jobs when in fact it's going to create tons of jobs. So everyone was mad at the tractor because it eliminated all the jobs in the farm, only allowing us humans to go do more profound things. AI is going to, do I believe AI is going to eliminate jobs? You betcha. Do I think it's also going to create jobs and opportunities for people that we can't even think of? I do. So I think people have decided, and this goes with social media as well, social media and AI sit in a very similar place with the world's feelings right now, which is people choose cynicism. People choose negativity. The biggest misconception is all the things that everyone thinks are going to be bad may be true, but they're spending no time on all the things that are going to be good.
We're storytellers. We're a news organization, but ultimately we are storytellers.
Yes.
And the big argument back and forth is, how long should this video be? How long should this piece of content be? Are attention spans getting shorter, or are people just not very good at storytelling? Is there truth somewhere in between?
Attention spans are not shorter. People are binge watching 8 episodes of Netflix for 7 hours on a Saturday afternoon. And then people are not watching a 6-second video after 1 second because it's a piece of crap. By the way, this is why I wrote this book. There is science around art to be good at short form content. And to your point, the skill of storytelling matters. People will watch a 3-hour film if it's good, and they won't watch a 10-second video if it's bad. So this is a merit-based game. I also remind people that these mediums didn't exist 30 years ago. We didn't have the option to watch a lot of short form video. It's not how the world worked. And so there was a time where people said magazines were short form and they were bad because they weren't books. By the time we were all growing up, magazines were normal. Kids that are born today won't even know what you're talking about when you talk about short form content because it was just always there for them.
And something else I always ask people on this podcast, I know you have a jam-packed schedule. You've done a lot of these interviews. You've talked a lot about your book. Is there anything that I'm not asking, or is there anything that other people haven't asked you about this book that you want people to know? Anything that's getting missed?
It's very kind how you're asking it. Honestly, in the meta of the way you asked that, I go on programs not particularly excited about getting something off my chest, or I could do plenty of my own promoting to get my things done. I'm obsessed with bringing value. So you're being very gracious to me in that question. I, in return, can tell you what I think has worked for me, and I wish more people were doing this. When I go do something like this, I'm desperately trying to bring value to your audience. I'm not trying to extract out a book sale. I'll take it, but I feel like I want to earn that by actually bringing value in it. And I think it's a fun way to wrap this up. I think more people in the world, actually, here's a fun way to say it. You want to grow in social media? When you post, why don't you think what's in it for the other person instead of what's in it for you? The main reason 99% of businesses and people can't grow on social is they're selfish. They want the likes. They want the followers. They want to sell something. Well, guess what? Your audience may not like that. And so I think if the world can get more into bringing value, all the things they want, the questions they'd like to be asked, the promotion they would like to do, all that works itself out. And I think that's a perspective change a lot of people need.
I'm not just trying to be nice. A lot of people know who you are. We have people working on this particular production from Egypt, from India, from the United States, from the UAE. Everyone knows when I said we might have GaryVee, they said, oh, that's great, that's wonderful. My question is at this point, and it's my last question, what is your weakest demo? Is there a demo out there where you think, man, I wish I could crack that, or I just haven't really touched upon that?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I'll give you the answer. The demo that most struggles with me, or I most struggle getting, is the demo that doesn't like the energy. There's a lot of people who would prefer to take a slow walk in a mountain with the breeze going and a little birds in the background. And there's other people that want to go to a sporting event. I'm the audience that struggles with me, or I struggle to capture, struggle with how hyper and excited I am. And that is something that I am empathetic to. You know, I think for people that can deal with the excitement, with the adrenaline, with my excitement, I think they can see to the merit of the meet. And so, you know, I'm not sure I'm ever going to be able to win, quote unquote, over that audience, because I think a great thing to end with is I'm really bad at being anything but me. And I think too many people, you know this, talk about how the word authenticity is thrown around so glib and so ridiculously. I actually think that something that's worked out for me was I knew myself pretty well by the time this all started happening for me. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to not be me anyway. And so I just lean into that. And so I think, yeah, some people that just want a little more calm, I give a little bit too much for them. And you know, I think that's just how the chips are going to play out.